On August 1st, Uptone's bandleader Eric Dinn released a brand new solo album, Content. Eric has been playing ska since the early 80s. The Uptones were an important early US ska band who influenced many future ska bands, including members of Operation Ivy and Rancid. Last year, we did an Uptones episode on this podcast with Eric and his bandmate Paul Jackson. Give it a listen if you'd like to hear their entire story. Content is Eric's second solo record. You can listen to both of his albums, Content and Street Party, on all streaming platforms or purchase them on CD at Eric Dinn's Bandcamp page, ericdinn.bandcamp.com. This song, 1983, on the new record, is a particularly catchy ska tune. And if you live in the Bay Area, be sure to check out Eric's solo acoustic show at Down Home Music in El Cerrito on August 12th. And now, on with the show.
The Popes of Chillitown formed in London nearly a decade and a half ago. Having formed after what many people consider to be the height of the household names records scene in the UK, the Popes clearly took influence from these bands, incorporating diverse elements like ska, punk, metal, grime, hip-hop, garage, and electronic music. But they've carved out their own sound that manages to blend these disparate genres into something very natural and organic. They've seen their audience grow in the past decade as a result. Their fourth album, Take a Picture, was released on June 30th, 2023. Make sure you grab a copy now.
I've been a pretty outspoken fan of the UK ska scene or the ska punk scene, I should say, for years. Popes of Chillitown are definitely one of those bands that I feel like people need to pay more attention to.
Yeah, they came out right after sort of like that household name records, like where the peak of that scene kind of came and went. So, but like they carry some of the musical traditions of that scene, and they do it really well, and they continue to evolve in interesting ways.
Yeah. Every time there's a new ska punk band from the UK, I'm always on board to check them out. And I really think that everybody should check out the new Popes of Chillitown record. And hopefully I'll get to see him live one day.
Yeah, come to the US.
Yeah, or I'll come to the UK.
Yeah, or we'll come there.
And did that sound like a threat? It wasn't supposed to be.
I want to start by talking about your song, 14 Time.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of my favorite tracks by you guys.
Nice.
Yeah, it's from To the Moon, your second album. I dig the kind of like it's got a nice ska reggae vibe with hip hop style vocals and stuff. I feel like there's a story behind that song. I'd love to hear what's the story behind that song.
I mean, I guess the story behind that song is it's about growing up in London and being massive fans of reggae, ska, two-tone, and all those different waves of Jamaican influenced music that have influenced us as a band, as individuals, and as a collective. So, my dad grew up in Herne Hill, which is around the corner from Brixton, and I grew up on a diet of ska and reggae music, and listened to all his old 45s from all the Trojan reggae stuff, and I guess it's all like saying when I say we don't even know how to play the kettle drum, I didn't even mean the kettle drum, I meant like a steel pan drum. But at the time I got the lyrics wrong for that. So I guess a kettle drum's like a timpani, but who gives a fucking shit? But it's about playing I guess white boys playing reggae and saying it's okay to do that because I've been doing it for so bloody long. So I've been listening to reggae since 1991, since I guess I was 7 years old, and just appreciating that sort of music and just vibes into those rhythms really. And then just making it about, the fact that we are from London, England, not Kingston, but also not just not Kingston, Jamaica, but not Kingston in Surrey as well. So, yeah, I guess it's just my view of just being able to chat about anything and just keeping the party going, keeping it vibes in. The 14 time bit references thing from Lee Scratch Perry, because Lee Scratch Perry was doing sort of like pull it up rewind thing well, on a song he was doing live once. He's like, he put it up once. It's like, no, 2 times. And you pull up a 3rd time. It's like, no, 3 times. He basically pulled up the song 14 times.
Really?
Or was it? No, it was doing like...
No, it's 13. It's 13 times,
it was 13 times. No, it's actually, it was give it to me like, like give it to me 1 time. And it's like, damn, give it to me 2 times. Bam, bam. And he's like, give it to me 13 times. So dun 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 dun. So we just thought, we'll do one more than that. Do you know what I mean? Like, so we'll just do 14 times. So it's about 14 times we still carry on, based on the beats are good, like Robin Hood and Maid Marian. It's just like trying to reference like a bunch of English shit.
I love the video. You guys have lots of nice props. Some of it relates specifically to what you're talking about. Some of it's just you're kind of throwing stuff in there. So let's go through some of it. Obviously, there's the specials LP at the beginning, but you also throw in the League of Gentlemen DVD, which you mentioned in the song.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of that show. I don't know how many people in the States have watched League of Gentlemen. Can you say what League of Gentlemen is?
Yeah, I guess it's a pretty niche reference if you're not from the UK, but like I guess that's your poetic license. You can just talk about whatever's relevant to you, and if people get it, they get it. If they don't, then they're going to Google it, and then they'll enhance their cultural appreciation of things they didn't encounter before. But the League of Gentlemen is like a pretty sort of dark humor, kind of off the wall kind of. It's kind of a sitcom. It's kind of like a dramatic comedy about a little village called Royston Vasey, which is the original name of quite a controversial, outmoded comic from the UK called Roy Chubby Brown, and his original name was Royston Vasey. So yeah, they basically these characters are from this little village, and it's about that sort of like that village versus city mindset. They don't like the new people. They don't like the new road being built, and all the people in there, they're like vaguely cannibalistic and like incestuous, and like there's this one guy who just like is like mad for toads, and he's got like this weird underground almost like sort of scientific dungeon full of toads, and at one point like one of the city folk who comes to visit gets locked up there, and he tries to escape and like kills a bunch of toads.
and there's like one shop where anytime anyone comes in there, the shop owners are like, "This is for local people."
Yeah. This is a local shop for local people. Yeah. There's nothing for you here. Yeah, it's pretty weird. And those two are like brother and sister, and like they got these turned up noses, and you can tell like the gene pool hasn't really been, they've been fishing from the same part for a few generations anyway.
Now let me get your opinion on this. I watched the show, I loved it, and then I saw Little Britain. Little Britain made its way to the U.S. in a much bigger way. I kind of thought, I feel like Little Britain is like the light version, the not quite as interesting version of League of Gentlemen. That was my feeling.
Yeah, it's not quite as funny, and it hasn't really stood the test of time. And I think in places, Little Britain's a bit. It's a bit racist in places, really.
Sure,
it's not my cup of tea anyway, and it's very much is catchphrase led. I mean, the League of Gentlemen's got some catchphrase comedy in it, but it doesn't rely on that. It relies on the situational comedy, the dramatic build up, and the ridiculousness of the whole setting. Whereas I think League of Gentlemen sort of like it was funny at the time, but it hasn't really stood the test of time. But it's nice when British comedy does make its way across the pond. I think like British comedy has always influenced American humor to some degrry, and vice versa. But like I think some of the greatest exports, like Monty Python, are well known of. But there's other shows like Bottom that people might not know about, which is absolutely fucking hilarious. Which is basically there's a lot of physical humor in there, and I think it's sort of like it takes its lead from sort of like Buster Keaton and Chaplin and things like that. But it's the sort of the level of violence within that show is quite hilarious, and the ways that they injure each other, and just the level of debauchery and the complete sadness of the two protagonists. It's like there's nothing redeeming or endearing about either of them. They're just living in this shithole flat in Hammersmith, and it's just like they're just pathetic losers, really. And I think people can laugh at such characters when they're not sort of like put up there as like any sort of heroes. They're not even anti-heroes. They're just losers. They're victims of their own nonsense, really.
Yeah, that definitely seems to be a running theme in like a certain segment of British comedies.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But it's funny because like the things that do get popular here, like for instance with Two Tone, like I feel like Madness, who to me seem like the most overtly British in their references and their presentation, seem to have like captured a larger audience in the States than any of the other Two Tone bands. And I was kind of thought that was kind of fascinating because they're so British and like the things they talk about and reference probably don't make a lot of sense to a lot of people in the States.
No, I mean, interesting you mentioned Madness actually, because like one of their, they got a big, almost like a big break. They were featured on the Young Ones, which was another
Yeah.
BBC sitcom, and actually the two guys in Bottom were Ade Edmondson and Rick Mail, who were two of the four or two of the five stars of the Young Ones, anyway. So yeah, I think Madness. Why are they more successful than the Specials or the Selector? I think it's just the songs speak for themselves. I mean, the Specials have got a whole bunch of songs. Obviously, some of the musicality in the Madness stuff is pretty mad. But obviously, like the Specials and Madness, they're still reimagining of old reggae tracks anyway.
Like one step beyond.
Yeah, you grow up thinking that's a Madness song, but it's not.
Yeah, I did. Until one day I was like, oh, okay. But I think Madness had quite, I don't know. Maybe it's the broadness in the sound that they had. I think when I first heard Madness, I didn't really know about ska music myself for a long time, kind of growing up. But I did know about Madness, and I did know Madness songs. So I don't know. Maybe there was just something in the broadness of the way they wrote stuff. I don't know, but yeah, I didn't know that they were the more popular one in the States.
Yeah, I think there's something really big about like this duality of on songs. On when you're very specific about something, it makes it more universal. So I think that Madness do have that kind of stuff, even though their references are really, as 14th Time as well, like their references are really British, but they speak to something that is really particular to someone. And even though you're hearing a reference that's something that you might never have heard before, you connect that to something that you know about, and how you're feeling towards that thing is the same as probably some other persons around the world feeling about some other things. Is you connect to the things the same.
Mm-hmm.
So back to your video, you put up I think it's a comp. It looks like it says Ska AKA. What is that? Do you remember? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, that was like one of the first sort of like ska CDs compilations that we had in the house. I can't remember. I think that's just like listening to reggae since 1991. I think that comes up next to a picture of Timmy Mallet, if I remember correctly, who's like some children's TV presenter. I think it was just like whatever CD I had around the yard, really, that was vaguely ska related at the time. But yeah, that was like that had like Missing Words by the Selector on it. It had Mirror in the Bathroom. I had I think it had Night Boat to Cairo on it, and some other things. It was just like had like a Fred Perry shirt on the front. It's just one of any number of like compilation CDs that you could have found down Woolworths, which was R.I.P. Woolworths, doesn't exist anymore. But there we go.
Yeah, Woolworths, R.I.P. Yeah.
I guess Matt's prop videos game is really strong. Like he always brings some cool stuff into the videos, and
he's definitely got stuff.
Yeah, I've definitely got a lot of shit.
Yeah.
And like I think when it comes to like making videos, like some of the times we're like, oh, you have a video next week, and we're focused on like, oh, can everyone make it? Can everyone get there? And then we get there, we're like, oh, what are we actually doing? what's the plan? I'm like, well, I like we just did a video for like one of our new singles, Take a Picture. I was like, well, I got a load of bones. I got like I got a dinosaur skull and like this sort of animatronic skeleton. Can we fit that in? There's like a whole bunch of old cameras. Yeah, that'll do. That's fine. Everyone got 2 t-shirts. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. That'll do.
Let's go. Yeah.
But I think 14 Time is like we actually did plan that, and we still got all the props there. And actually, like I think one day like we're probably gonna like auction them off for charity or something, and like sell them at like 10p a go. I don't know, maybe £1, and see if anyone wants a piece of Pope's history.
So there's a shot where you guys are all wearing shirts, and it's just you. So one of you is wearing a Toaster shirt. One of them, the shirt is Treehouse Fire. I'm not sure who's Treehouse Fire.
Oh, you don't know So they're a band that have been, I guess they've been around sort of quite a similar length of time to Popes, or at least they've been around for at least over 10 years from what I can remember. But they're very sort of closely knit to the sort of scene we play in. We've done a lot of gigs together over the years. They're I guess sound wise, they're a lot closer to the more sort of UK reggae sort of vibe. Maybe a little bit closer to something like the Skins, I guess. But they've been around. They're still going. They're still doing really well. I'm sure they'll probably pop up on your radar at some point soon.
And then there's Risky and the Ridicule.
Oh, and they're another band that have been around for a very similar length of time to us, and they're. You're not familiar with Risky and the Ridicule?
I'm familiar with them. You're not, Aaron?
I'm not. No.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So they're absolutely doing very well at the moment, and similar to sort of fan base, I guess, with Popes, and I'd highly recommend checking them out. It's more sort of like punk meets sort of grime, fast lyrics, energy, but they've been around, around the block.
Yeah, they're an amazing band. I didn't know about them before I came to the UK. Obviously, I started playing with them with Popes, and they're a banging band. They're really good, and they also have they do have songs about how they don't belong to certain scenes, but they do play with the ska punk scene a lot in here. But I guess they don't make it out of the ska punk scene outside of the UK because they're not really ska punk, but they do share the stage with a lot of ska punk bands in here, and they're really worth checking out. Yeah.
I mean, they definitely fit more with the UK ska punk bands than they would with like just regular rock or punk bands.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's that sort of, there's a sort of culture kind of, I guess over the years with more recent sort of UK ska bands, there was a more incorporation of, things like hip hop and grime and the sort of fast lyrics. And I think sometimes you get bands, it might not be the ska, specifically the ska elements that cause them to cross over and sort of fit into each other's sort of scenes. It's more some of the other elements, like, I guess we've done a lot of gigs with Risky over the years, and I'm sure people sort of see similar sort of vibes or sort of similar things in terms of the types of frontmen we have and the way they mix up sort of singing and sort of fast lyrics.
Yeah, you mentioned like I think there's 4 t-shirts in the video, and basically there's 4 of us on the screen, and we're wearing each t-shirt, and we do a little cut, and then like everyone's wearing a different t-shirt, but we stay in the same positions or something like that. And I think the 4 t-shirts are, now you mentioned them, Toasters, Treehouse Fire, Risky, and I think the other one's Counting Coins. So Counting Coins, they're like like another. And the front guy from Counting Coins is Harry, and you got Scott Risky from Risky. And yeah, they're like pretty established, pretty decent rappers, me and those guys, like we like talking fast. We like talking fast over reggae and ska and fast guitars and loud guitars. And I think the irony of it is like you got put the other band being the Toasters, and like the Toasters probably the only band there who aren't like in that sort of like reggae toasting style of singing fast and rapping over lyrics, but they're actually called the Toasters.
Yeah.
But there's definitely that element to the UK ska punk scene where there is that fast paced lyricism and that high energy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just where those bands sort of cross over, really. Sometimes there's like the reggae crossover, there's the rap crossover, and that's influenced by like UK garage as much as it is by drum and bass, and then also like by hip hop and grime and things like that.
And the rave culture.
Yeah, rave culture, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite things about the UK ska punk scene has always been that I feel like where you guys pull inspiration from is a little bit more limitless than other places in the world, where you guys will pick stuff from rave culture, drum and bass, things, grime, and put it into the music, and it makes it much more like genuinely from the UK, I feel like.
Yeah, well, I think it's an island nation, isn't it? So this island has been invaded, several times. And my heritage is Irish, Arvin's is Indian, Trosso's is Brazilian. So we've all come to this country from other places, like people have done for thousands of years. So people always bring their influences, whether it's food, technology, or music or whatever. So it's a big melting pot. And London is really like an example to the world of multiculturalism, and that one of the the products of that is is the diverse musicality of the people who live in London, but also in other cities and other parts of the country as well. So yeah, there's lots of things that people are influenced by, and that's what makes it sort of, you know, slightly different to European ska, or like, you know, West Coast US ska punk, because, you know, it's more sort of maybe like sort of escape punk kind of vibe.
Yeah, I'm curious about your history with sort of the hip hop grime elements with your vocals. Is that something that you had early on, or is that something that you sort of developed as the band developed?
No, I reckon like I've been MCing and like rapping over music since I was about 12. So like, I guess, you know, it was like we talked about UK garage, and like basically you go to house parties like when we were teenagers, and like you'd have someone doing DJing, and, you know, someone being an MC. Like my brother got a pair of decks, like got a pair of I can't remember what they were now, but they were rubbish. But so he used to like drop all the garage tracks like Doolally, Straight from the Heart, and Shoulder Hammer, and you know, like all like Shanks and Bigfoot, and you know, all the stuff on Red Rose Recordings. And so we just play them up in the top room of the house, and, you know, Mum would be saying, "Shut up, turn that down," but, you know, you carry on. And like we didn't have a microphone, but like I've got a big pair of headphones on now. But basically, you plug the headphones into the mic socket. You get like a small to big adapter or whatever, and you plug the headphones into the mic socket, and then you could wrap down the left headphone. So that's what we do. And then we had 2 sets of headphones before we had a set of headphones and a mic. So yeah, I've just been rapping out, you know, out the window for years. And then like you just go around to like garage house parties, and like people just almost like form an orderly queue and just like wait to chat down their 16 bars, and then like go to the back of the queue, start again. Do you know what I mean? And if someone just stood on the mic for longer, if they could vibes, and that was great. But one of the things people used to do was like, you know, just like wasting bars, just trying to stay on the mic for longer. Which it wasn't really me, but that's like when you see a lot of like the drum and bass MCs now, like they don't actually rap that much. It's just more about keeping the flow going, and it's like that comes from that house party circuit of just keeping the crowd bubbling, keeping it alive. Whereas I'd rather sort of like write the bars and just get those bars out, really.
Are there any tropes in that sort of freestyling that you absolutely hate?
Yeah, and end every sentence with an E. It's like, you know, there's like a so solid tune. It's like, what does it take to be a garage MC? Personality, originality, and also at that time, like garage MCs, like in the UK, used to chat with American accents. Like, you know, I didn't personally, but, you know, at the time, everybody used to chat with American accent. But basically, a garage MC would just sound like and I'm with the melody, rude boy DJ, here we go, no diggity. I remember say when a mic is telling me I'm the red fang in front of me, I'm vibing at the party. Here we go, now another one. Here we go, yeah, you know, there's everyone. Yeah, just whatever, just like everyone, you know, that's like, you only sort of like think about like 1 or 2 words at the end of it, and that's where that came in at the start of it, because people weren't really thinking that far ahead. But yeah, the sort of tropes of that would be like, you know, like you know, when I say blah blah, you say yeah. So we still do that in the live set. Like when I say chili, you say down chili. No one said it, but there we go. You know.
Shit.
Oh yeah, we'll edit that in.
Yeah, that's fine. Don't worry about it. But yeah, like guess that sort of thing. But yeah, I don't know. Just keeping it vibes in, like having that mix of the fast chatting, but also the melodic concept as well. So I think that's where, like garage tunes, like you'd have the melody, or like the chorus would be supplied by the beat in the background, and so like the rap would just be the verse. But I think as the music developed, people then started putting like their own melodies and verses together. You'd have like a bunch of standard tracks that people would just rap their own verses over the top of. But then as it developed and like turned into grime, that's when like people like Dizzy Rascal like would start having their own verses and their own melodies for choruses, like all in the same tune already produced. And that I guess that develops then into like, you know, sort of like a rap dub punk kind of element, where, you know, you're creating full songs with just like, you know, rappy verses, like sing-songy choruses, but then like, you know, metally breakdowns as well. So like, it's just fusing all those different elements together. And
yeah,
so it's still evolving. Do you know what I mean? Like our new album, like Take a Picture, that's like, is very different from like our last album, which was different from the one before it, which was different from the first one. So, you know, it's just about progression, really, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like Take a Picture Now, there's a lot of elements to it, but I feel like there's more heavy elements in this one than in previous records, and also and more like electronic sounds kind of slipped in there.
Yeah, I mean the electronic sort of stuff. I guess it sort of started off with. I think it's something that's kind of happening sort of more now with sort of bass lines and bass culture. There was a period before we started writing it. We were just experimenting a bit more with sort of layering like bass synth, and it kind of started there with a couple of sort of ideas and tunes, and then that sort of kind of evolved more into a sound of this album, and then Jack obviously brought in a lot more sort of sounds and layers or electronic layers to hooks and that kind of thing. So yeah, no, I'd say that's definitely true with the electronic side.
Jack being the drummer, obviously.
Yeah.
One of the things I like about you, and I see it's continued to be true on the new record, is how much you're able to take different elements and put them in the same song, but not. It doesn't feel like jarring, like you're suddenly shifting. Oh no, here's the metal section, here's the ska section. It blends really naturally to where you might not even notice that it's so many different elements are in it. Like
Mm-hmm.
I think Colin Firth's First Birthday, I think, might be my favorite track from the new record. But like one of the things that's really cool about it is it's got kind of this nice like mid-tempo kind of upbeat ska type of groove with hip hop vocals, but then there's like this dark metal riff that kind of comes and goes that really doesn't fit, but it does.
Yeah, so that sort of riff, I think that was something Trosso brought to the table. In fact, so it's the first album we've worked with this lineup with Trosso and our guitarist Mike, who sort of joined a little while before we got to recording it, and yeah, contributed to some writing as well. But we do generally in Popes have a lot of, sort of random hooks and ideas coming together, and that does sort of come to our attention as well in terms of wondering whether everything sort of fits in the same universe. But yeah, somehow it sort of does.
Yeah, I think that I was very. So I joined Popes in 2019, so that was after the penultimate album, and while we were just writing all these songs for Take a Picture, and I was bloody mesmerized by the amount of like different references and different stuff that they were trying to put in the songs. And I was in the room for most of the stuff, but when lockdown hit for the first time, then we started creating alone, and then I came up with that riff, and then we developed the song later on in a session in which our guitarist Mike couldn't come to the session, so I was playing guitar, and we came up with this whole thing. But it was really hard because I come much more from an American ska punk kind of influence. I didn't know a lot of UK ska because I think I came into the UK in 2015, so that was just about when streaming and worldwide music was accessible from anywhere. And but when I was here, I was like, it was just like mind blowing how, as you were saying, how these different influences and different rhythms and different ideas can come together into a ska punk song. And I was just trying to do something that would be relevant and that would be impactful for the thing, and then came up with this riff. But it's really hard to chip in with stuff when you come from the outside and you see these things that is like, oh, this is good. Am I that good as well to like chip in with something? But then I just started throwing ideas at everyone, and this one that picked up.
Yeah, great ideas.
Yeah, and I think like each idea sort of like comes from the last one that we've done as a group. It might have been something that Trosso or Arvin or myself or Jack or Mike or Jimmy brought to the table, but like each next new idea comes from the history of ideas we've had within the last the year prior to that, or the 2 years prior to that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think like with like Colin Firth's First Birthday, like I think that when we got in the studio, like I changed my mind about which verses I was going to put over the top of that. And actually the melodic bit towards like the latter part of the song, I think was actually earlier on in the song. But I was doing it in the studio and I thought, no, this isn't quite right. So I thought we'd just change it. And that's where we changed the sort of like the concept of the song and just put that verse in instead. And thinking about it as we'd like done like a couple of a couple of verses of it, then like we started cutting beats out of that sort of mid-late sort of like brassy section towards the end. You know, like Jack said, like, oh no, we'll just like skip a beat here and just like to just keep people sort of like thinking about it. And then yeah, I don't know, like it just kind of makes sense. Like we don't overthink it either. We don't set out to plan a song like, oh, we need, you know, this A B A C A D A B structure or whatever. We just want to have like just whatever comes next is based on what's immediately happened, you know, just before that. So it's just kind of normal really for us.
Yeah, I love the way how inclusive the jam room is, because whenever anyone like suggests any idea, we're like, yeah, let's at least try it. It's not like, I don't think that's going to work. No, let's try it. And then if it doesn't work, like it doesn't work. But most of the times it does. And then we just take it from there.
Yeah.
By the way, I like the closing line of that song, answer the dark truth inside of you.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's about, I get, you know, that part of it, that was like one of the original elements of the song that was there before I started putting in like the bits about like looking in the mirror and cutting your face open and pretending you were Colin Firth and all that. It was just more about like, there was this YouTube video about Winnie the Pooh, right? And Winnie the Pooh was like praising. We have a before I go on, we have like a multi-faith approach to like our understanding of the world. Like we understand, you know, humanism, Catholicism, Judaism, Sikhism, Buddhism, you know, Islam, all that. But you know, we have like that's a bit of a nod to Satanism in there a little bit, because Winnie the Pooh is there praising Satan in the mirror and drinking yak's blood. And it's an answer the dark truth inside of you is about listening to that. It's like that Tenacious D, the Pick of Destiny, the end of that, and he's like, you know, Satan's the little voice in your ear that says, I don't want to go to work today, or I don't, or whatever it is. And it's like answer the dark truth inside of you. It's like listen to that bad voice inside of you that says, I'm feeling, like the lyrics are like, I'm feeling kind of lazy. I don't know if I want to get up and try life or stay in bed until the sun retires. Like, just like, I don't know if I can be bothered getting out of bed today. So yeah, I guess like, you know, you've got to like make time to like sort of like answer that dark truth inside of you and like just say like, fuck it, I can't be bothered today. Do you know what I mean?
So Trasso, I don't think, did we say this explicitly, that you're also in Abracadabra? I don't know if we said that.
I don't think we have.
Yeah,
not yet. No.
Let's establish that for people, that you're not just from Brazil, but you're from famed Brazilian ska punk band Abracadabra.
Oh yeah.
Oh, thank you. Great. Yeah. So I've been, Abracadabra's been my baby band. It's 20 years old this year, and we've been together for this amount of time. And when I moved to the UK, like the first time that Abracadabra was coming to the UK, we had like 3 festivals booked, but that was for like a 4-week run that we had. The flight tickets booked from everyone else from Brazil to here. I was trying to connect with promoters and venues and stuff, and that wasn't working. So that's when the idea came to my mind in speaking to the actual bands from the ska punk scene. And then I met the Popes, and the rest is history. But yeah, I think I got in touch with Arvin first, and he's like, yeah, just come to this gig that we have. Then I went there, we got in touch. That gig was bloody amazing. Like, I had no idea that they didn't have like a fixed lineup. And then I met Arvin a couple of days later, because we live kind of in the same neighborhood in here. And it's like, oh yeah, that sax is a Depp. And I'm like, oh, so. I was like,
oh, I thought you were just a singer. Oh, you play sax as well. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And then I joined them, and yeah, it's been fucking great. It's been like, I've learned so much from all of them, and I still learn so much from all of them every year.
Learned from you,
and that
buddy.
definitely makes its way into Abracadabra's music and my musicality in as a whole, to be honest.
How do you balance living? I mean, you're part-time in the UK and part-time in Brazil. How does that work?
No, I'm full-time in the UK, really. So Abracadabra is a 7-piece band when I'm with them, and a 6-piece without me. So it's like, it's still a lot of people. Yeah. So they just play whenever they're in Brazil. They just play as the same band, but without the sax parts. And everyone basically sings in the band, so they share my vocals and they share my parts of the vocals.
Okay.
So it still works as a 6-piece. And then whenever we have an international tour, then I meet them, whatever it is, and we just do it. But yeah, I'm full-time in here, to be honest. I just go back to Brazil to, the eventual like holidays and stuff. But then obviously we always book a show whenever I'm there. Yeah. So the next one, the next Abracadabra like full show is going to be in December, because I'm going to be there with all of them in Brazil. Apart from that, it's only international tours. Because in Brazil, it's a very different way of touring than in America, in which, you know, you go on a 4-week, 5-week run, and then you do all the cities and stuff. In Brazil, it's more like you play in a state in the, you know, Friday and Saturday, go back home, and then if it is a tour next week, you go to a different state. There's no like really long runs, so it's not really feasible for me to go back to Brazil to do that and come back. Like London. London is London. It's a big city. It's an expensive city. I've got a life here. I got a lot of stuff to do here, so it's just not worth it.
Sure.
If it was a big tour, I would probably go back and do it with them, but it didn't happen in this last 8 years in Brazil, only outside.
Gotcha.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the history of Popes. When did the band form? I saw different dates online, so I'm going to ask you.
Yeah, I mean, like, so the current lineup, we've been together like since Trosso and Mike were in the band. So like we did this album together, and I think like, you know, me, Jack, and Arvin, like we've been like in the band for like over 10 years now. So we would like all the 4 albums that we've done together. That's been like me, Jack, and Arvin as like the core of the band.
And that was around like 2011.
That probably even older. I think it probably goes. I think when we first started jamming with that particular core would have been, you know, before the first debut album. I think that goes back to like 2010 at least, 2009 maybe even. But there was a while of us sort of playing gigs and stuff and sort of forming the songs and everything before we went in to record it. But you know, it's a band with a long, you know, sort of very very long history, and you know, things that led to another, and but yeah, feel free to sort of ask anything on the old timeline.
You guys met at college in Nottingham?
Yeah, so basically, like, I met the guys who were in the band before, like Rishi, Austin, and Treat Boy, Ewan. And so we were jamming around at university in Nottingham, and it's like doing open mic nights and writing songs there together. I was in another band at the time as well called the Mighty Jalalabad, which never got off the ground, but I just sort of reference that for a laugh. So like we were like just jamming about and writing songs together, and like so the first gig that we played, I was dressed up in a gorilla suit at the student union. We were doing Battle of the Bands, and the band that once did a cover of Arctic Monkeys, I Bet You Look Good on the Dance Floor, sounded nothing like how they played at Glastonbury this year, I have to say. It sounded actually like how it sounds on the record, but you know, that's another story. But yeah, like so we started at uni and started jamming around with that, and then like over the next couple of years, like people dropped out and the lineups sort of changed. Oz stayed in the band singing with me on the first album that we did, Word to the Wise, and then Treat Boy stuck around for that album as well. But then after that first album, Treat Boy and Austin moved on, and then we got another guy called Tom in, played the guitar, and then we had Micah on sax because Liz had been in the band before that, Mama Liz, and she wanted to do something else anyway. So it was great. She did a lot of sax parts for us later on and helped us with that sort of stuff anyway. And then in the current lineup, it's definitely the strongest we've been, and we've been like pretty solid in this. And like I think this is like the most energetic we've been, and you know, definitely like the most solid we've been as a group as well, like technically and, you know, harmoniously, and you know, when we're performing, it seems like, you know, a lot easier. Just seems to gel, and I think like the influences that we've all got, and like the sort of thing, like when we talk about Colin Firth there, like the sort of like the things that we bring to the table in terms of songwriting, it makes so much sense now, all of us 6 together.
Yeah. So that first show, I found an old interview where somebody in the band said that maybe it was you, that didn't go well and that you had to restart a song.
Ooh, where was that? Was that Barfly or something?
No, I think this is like this is down at Nottingham Students' Union, mate. I mean, to be honest, I can't bloody remember that. Like that was so many years ago. I remember being hot as anything, hot as hell, in my gorilla costume with my Old Dirty Bastard t-shirt on. I remember that, and I remember having a tray of sweets that I was handing around to the crowd. I remember dancing on top of a pool table. I remember. I can't even remember like half of the songs we played, because the songs we played then, like they weren't even on the first album. Do you know what I mean? They're just like different kind of songs, and that's like the evolution of the band. Like we started off like almost like more of a like kind of a slower pace kind of reggae vibe, and I was definitely just like toasted MCing in the band. But yeah, I can't remember restarting a song, but I wouldn't say that would be the only time that had happened. You know what I mean? Like,
that sounds like it would have been something probably before. So yeah, I think around that time it was very much. So there's I guess there was a little bit of a history before, the first debut album. I kind of met sort of Austin and Rishi and Ewan, because I live in Ealing as well, and sort of played with them for a while, and Matt as well would sort of met Matt through them as well, and that sort of led up to, I think it was just a sort of a period of playing some more sort of reggae shows quite locally, and it was, I think their early, prior to that was very much sort of influenced by sort of a French reggae band called Trio. So it was very different to the Popes, that sort of stemmed from its debut album, I guess. So in a sense, it was almost two very different bands, and it sort of ended up leading towards finding members and looking for a drummer, I remember, and we stumbled across finding Jack, fortunately, and sort of around 2009, 2010, I guess that's when we started forming the songs for the first album, which is a sort of a bit of the I guess more familiar with the Popes, people know today.
So before we were recording, we were talking a little bit about the household name records sort of scene, like Countdown, Lightyear, Adequate 7, etc. Seems like that had kind of peaked and kind of died a bit by the time you guys get going. Do you feel like, do you have like a direct connection to that, or was that an influence at all? Well, I'm curious the way you see your place in light of that.
Yeah, I think there's a massive influence, like especially Capdown and King Prawn. And listening to those bands growing up, like Capdown was definitely my favourite band when I was a teenager, and I'd say King Prawn was a very close run second. That's probably because I only had one King Prawn CD in the house at the time. But then as the years gone by, we've been lucky enough to play on the bill with King Prawn a bunch of times, and they're really solid geezers. They played with Capdown at festival, so that was nice as well. I think it's like it's that harder element. You have like with Capdown, you have like the more distorted guitars and the heavier side of things, which really influence more like kind of the screaming vocals or the metal vocals, that I like to do. But with King Prawn, you have that sort of that more sort of like almost like Balkan kind of harmonic minor vibe, which like from System of a Down, like inspired us as well. Like we like to mess around with that.
Yeah, it's got that sort of Eastern sound.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be honest, I remember at the beginning, I know you, these guys sort of introduced definitely me to the ska punk stuff. I guess I joined the sort of first sort of early phase of Popes because of just being a sort of dub orientated bassist. But I knew early 80s ska and stuff like that, but I didn't really know much about what was going on in the scene. I remember Matt telling me about, have you heard like King Prawn and Capdown? And I was, at the time I was like, oh, is that like sort of like skater punk sort of stuff and everything? He's like, no, not at all.
No, it's better.
Yeah, it's banging.
So that scene had what was the state of the scene for bands playing ska punk?
Sorry, yeah, it had kind of fizzled out. It wasn't, yeah.
There was still, I'd say there was still elements of it going. So I think a lot of people describe that particular genre or that style probably maybe more towards what they call the UK ska-core sort of scene. But you still had echoes of that sound and bands that were, I mean, when we were there in the early days, was playing some gigs with Mouthwash. I don't know if you're familiar with Mouthwash. There's a band called Clay Pigeon as well. Obviously Random Hand and Sonic Boom 6. They're all sort of, I guess they were carrying that sound, and it was very much very much a thing of the era.
Yeah, there was a scene that was still going. Yeah, it was still bubbling away, but it wasn't. I wouldn't say it ever went away. It just didn't have the numbers of it wasn't the big venues that I guess Captain have been playing when they've been in their prime. But yeah, ska scene is never going to go away. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. To me, Sonic Boom 6 seems kind of more the spiritual predecessor of kind of where you guys have taken the sound a little bit.
A little bit. I can see why people see that. I think there's a lot of it goes back to sort of early. I think sort of early. Well, not speaking for Sonic Boom 6, but I think there is a thing of like a sort of rave culture, or certain sort of era. Like what Matt was talking about earlier. That's always been something we carry with us. We've always talked about doing that sort of sound in the earlier Pope days, but I think now's the time where you sort of pulled it off but brought it to the table in the same way.
Yeah, I think you'd say there'd be a couple of tunes where I could see a sort of like a more sort of like obvious influence from Sonic Boom 6 in terms of like maybe the production values of the track. But I think that wouldn't be consistent across the whole of the new album. I think that's where like we try to be quite diverse, and because we've got so many influences, we wouldn't want to make a whole album that was sort of like sort of kind of the same in a lot of places. We'd like to draw influences from as many things as possible, because you're not going to make a 30 track album, so you've got to try and get a lot of diversity into like the 14. I mean, I don't know how many tracks on it. It's like 12, 13, whatever it is, but yeah. So I guess there's a bit of Cap Down in there, a bit of SB6, bit of the other bands we play with as well, because like the more you like tour with each other and bounce off each other, then a bit of Barstool Preachers here, a bit of Call Me Malcolm there, a bit of Treehouse Fire and the other, like it's all just people going up and down the country playing together, and a bit of Imperial Leisure, bit of Carl Phillips, bit of whatever, just like having a good time and like making the same kind of music.
Yeah, there's a lot of I was going to say there's a lot of in terms of that sound you're talking about in the Sonic Boom 6, and there are a lot of bands out there doing that. Maybe they don't get about as much, but you should definitely check out a band called Illuminati from I think they're from up in Derby or Nottingham or somewhere up north, and they've been I guess they're not as, I don't know if they gig around London and stuff as much, but they very much mix a lot of those sort of elements that that you picked up on with the same way.
They played down New Cross Inn, didn't they, when we were last there?
I don't know. I think they might have. Yeah, and I've seen them around. I've seen them at festivals and stuff like that. But they've got the real sort of kind of mishmash of stuff going on, and like filthy, dirty synths and that kind of thing. Yeah, no, definitely worth a check out.
Yeah, I can see a lot of the especially when we play with all these bands here across the UK, and when we were writing the album as well. It was quite clear that when we went to I always remember this gig that we did with Counting Coins up north in Leeds, and then it was just a banging gig. They killed it, and then the next week on the jam room we were all kind of unconsciously but consciously putting some stuff that we've heard on that show into the tracks, and that happens all the time whenever we go and play with Risky for me. It's always a very influential band as well. Their gigs are just amazing, and everyone else, and it just makes its way into the songs kind of unconsciously, because we are all part of the same thing. And I can see a lot of the influence from production style for Popes before I joined in and afterwards. There's I think that a lot of UK bands, they try to keep it very natural, the sound very natural. It's intentionally not overproduced, which is great, and that gives it a lot of character as well. But then, as Matt was saying as well, you having that diversity inside the album. So in this album, in Take a Picture, I think we did do a lot of stepped over, this not overproduced stuff, and let's say, oh, in this track, let's do this and let's do that. And I think the amalgamation of everything, turned it into what it is at the moment.
Yeah, so off the new album, that song Crash Mat is definitely, you can hear some of that sort of Sonic Boom 6 kind of vibe in there. Definitely with the electronic effects and stuff, and then with Short Straw, maybe it's a bit more sort of Cap Downy here and there. Mm-hmm. But then other tracks, I'd say it just you know, people will have to tell us what they think it sounds like, because I'm not even sure. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, it's just what happens. You know what I mean? We just make the tunes. We don't, you know, it's a bit subconscious, really.
So your first album, A Word to the Wise, comes out in 2013. So Matt, I have a question for you. I've noticed some running themes in your lyrics, and I think there's a song on the first record I think touches on both of the two themes I see commonly. The song's "Tooting Ska Moon," and I feel like you frequently talk about questioning society and and how society says you're supposed to live your life, and I also feel like you talk about kind of fighting the apathy towards like the injustice of the world. Like if it's not personally affecting you, like who cares? Like that kind of vibe. So, anyways, that song has both of those things talked about it, but I kind of see it come up quite a bit. So I'm curious on your take on that.
Yeah, I think that's like it's a kind of like tale as old as time. Like people talking about, you know, wanting to be free and trying to escape the mundanity and the predictability of everyday life. I think, coming from London, it's like it's the one of my favorite little expressions, and boys will have heard this 1,000 times, would be something from the poet Gabriel Garcia Lorca. I think it's like Gabriel Garcia Lorca. Anyway, Lorca, whatever his name is, right? And it's like the sea represents the absorption of the individual into anonymity. And I always feel that London is like a big sea, like a big pool of nothingness, where, you know, people can just vanish into, you know, just to be like dust particles lost in the abyss of a mass population. I think coming from South London, you realize that there's just like so many people that, like, every day you step out your house, that you never see the same people twice. So trying to find meaning in something seemingly so meaningless, like every day, where, you know, you're not even sure if you're making a difference, because you're not even sure if anyone notices you're actually there, and trying to sort of just make your own stamp on just like a massive expanse of space, where you don't know if your footprints will ever, you know, stay there longer than 2 minutes. It's really difficult. So like trying to, in that song, I think it's like talking about like, it's not against the law, I want to break the mold or something like that. But I think that, you know, a lot of people feel that in their sort of like their teenage or 20 age angst, like of just trying to do something original with your life, and trying to just like live life by your own set of principles. And I think like we all try and do that, and I've always tried to do that, just trying to do like whatever it is that makes me happy. So like my daddy told me, and go and earn some money, I'd much rather be living where I'm happy. So I think that really means like just, you know, living anywhere, really, living in the countryside, really, escaping from that mass homogenized nonsense of city living. And it's like celebrating your own individuality, I guess, like just wanting to be free of it. So I think the chorus, like, you know, we'll ever be free tomorrow, we'll ever be free today. Well, I mean, maybe not. You might just sort of just try again tomorrow. Do you know what I mean? Like,
and I guess the other side of that too is like the fighting the apathy towards actually caring about like all the things going on in the world. You know, the injustices, all the problems of the world, how it's easy to sort of tune that out and to not care.
It's like recycling a plastic bottle. Like, people say, well, what's the point? Because that's the point. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you don't do one little tiny thing, then then the bigger picture doesn't matter at all. So like, if you want to change the big things, you've got to focus on the small things.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty cliche, but it's kind of true. So like just try and do something good with your life every day. Then you'll sleep better at night, and that'll be better for you. But also, like, you're benefiting everyone else by just like not being a complete selfish bastard and just ruining the planet and ruining other people's days.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting how, coming from a different place, like that feeling that you have, as maybe it's kind of overwhelming. For me, it's very freeing, because at the same time that you're in a city where you're nobody, you can do whatever the fuck you want, right? Because it's like, that's that element to it as well. Like, no one will care, no one will, you know. Where I come from, it's a very much smaller city, and I felt like an artist in there. Like, you know, I was always being watched and judged by other people, and I don't feel that way being in London and being in Popes. It's a much more freeing feeling than most of the places on earth, I think, have.
Well, I saw a post that you made on the Pope's Facebook page about the New Cross Inn in London. You called it your spiritual home. Can you talk about that venue? Because this is kind of an iconic punk ska venue, right?
Yeah, well, to be honest, so the New Cross Inn used to be, quite a well-known London venue. I think it's sort of, I've played gigs there in previous bands, and there was I don't know do you know Paul Smith? Do you know Paul Smith?
Of course I know Paul Smith.
I was going to say, silly question.
There's two people everyone knows. It's Paul Smith and Trosso.
Yeah, sure.
But like in the early days, when we first met Paul, and this is with the sort of, I guess the Word to the Wise era lineup. He was putting on some shows in Kent, where he lived, and he started running these shows just on weekends and Sundays, which were like all sort of all day ska punk gigs, and they were just doing very well at New Cross. They'd be well attended. There was a buzz going on. He created a bit of a scene there, and from there he just sort of built something up, and then ended up promoting for the venue and working for the venue, and putting more regular nights from ska punk bands, and it ended up becoming a spiritual home. Obviously not just for us, but all the other bands.
And very big bands as well. He managed to put like Goldfinger in there and Les and Jake, and it's a 300 maybe cap. So yeah, I think it's quite impressive that he managed to do that. So yeah, I think people respect it a lot.
Online, I found like a biography on the venue itself, and it said that it's been there for 400 years.
Wow.
I didn't know that.
Do you know, it has such a massive effect on people in the community, though. Like there's this guy, is it Craig Nicholas Darren? Like he made the New Cross Inn out of Lego.
Oh, I remember seeing that. That was amazing.
So check that out on Facebook. Like he made it out of Lego, and like he's like the detail in that is just fucking ridiculous. Like even like the urinal cakes, whatever you want to call them. Like it's he went to town on that, and I think that's the connection that people have with the place. Like people know exactly all about the crackheads outside. They know about the chicken shop round the corner. I mean, other people would know the name. I can't actually remember the name of it, but it's just so cool. And like it's nothing short of a miracle that the floor has not collapsed in that place.
I was just thinking about the floor and what you said about the 400 years.
You go downstairs like to relieve yourself during the gig, and then like there's people jumping about upstairs, and there's just like this ominous creaking, and you can literally see the floor bellowing underneath the weight of 200, 300 people skanking about the place, and yet it's still standing, and and hopefully it'll never fall through. It's
knock on wood.
That's what we hope.
I believe I was looking at a photo. Has the pole? It does have a pole on stage, right?
It does have a pole on stage, which is better than a pole in the middle of the dance floor.
What were we talking before we were recording? You guys were talking about a different venue called Underground.
Yeah, the Underworld. The Underworld has a pole right in the middle of the dance floor.
Okay, so what was the thing you guys were talking about people licking it?
Oh yeah, just like it's just that's an old wives' tale, isn't it? Of people being dared to lick the pole in the middle of the dance floor at the Underworld. I mean, I wouldn't do it personally, but whatever gets you through a Friday night. But yeah, like we try to get people to circle pit around it, which sometimes is easier than others. Like some people fall over and some people get picked up. But that's the great thing about like a heavy show that's ska punk or metal, or I don't know if you get it too much in hardcore. People probably just like jump on top of each other a bit more on that. But like everyone pushes.
Yeah, no one smashes into the pole. No one smashed their head into the pole yet. So everyone's pole conscious.
No, I haven't seen that, but like we have had to stop gigs before when like people have like been knocked out, like not like just like they've fallen off stage or they've whacked their head on the floor, and it's like okay. Yeah, we'd better stop and check you're all right.
Have any of you ever been injured badly during a show?
No, but I kicked Mike into the back of the stage from up at Brudenell Social Club the other month. Actually, me and Mike both did like sort of like a rock and roll kind of like jump and kick midair, but we like our feet like proper connected. And I guess I must have been more balanced, just like by luck. I just basically like kung fu kicked him like across the stage, and he landed up like crashing into these curtains at the back of the stage. Could have been a lot worse, you know. But I've fallen into drum kits several times. I think I've slipped on spilt Guinness many times. Yeah, so what? Fucking carry on. Who gives a shit?
Yeah, I think there's always like this very underlying sense of like getting hurt on the gig, but that makes it more fun, I think, because we're all.
Yeah, you have to lead by example, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you guys have any pre-show rituals or anything that you all do before hitting the stage?
We like a good stretch, don't we, Trosso?
Yes, good stretching. It's necessary.
Yeah.
So especially when you have a run of shows and you're doing that every day. Yeah, for me, it's the stretching. I do at least like 15 minutes of stretching before every show.
Yeah, I might do about 2 minutes. I see him doing it for a while. And I'm like, I'm still getting my equipment. I'm like, I should have a little stretch. Really, I just sort of little limber up. Yeah.
I also get a Red Bull 1 hour before stage. I drink a Red Bull. That's it.
Yeah, I like a bit of make it look like vocal remedy, especially if you're on the road. Like 1 or 2 gigs, like no one really cares. Like you can sing everybody how you want. If you're doing a string of dates, you have to do like sort of like honey and lemon and ginger and onion tea, which is the more it's developed over the years, it's basically become a soup. I guess like the old honey and ginger or honey and lemon. I've left the onion out of it the last couple of years, I have to say.
Yeah, I've never heard onion before.
Yeah, onion. I don't know. Someone says that you once, then you end up doing it. I think it was it the Slackers? Was it the Slackers who told us about the onion tea?
What does the onion accomplish?
No, it was Steve. No, it was Hackney Road.
Oh yeah, of course, it was Steve. Yeah. Classic Steve.
Yeah, classic Steve.
I don't know. The onion is supposed to just get a third of an onion. That's how he said it, wasn't it? And just chop it up, put it in a cup of tea, and just top it up. Just keep topping it up. And I don't know. I just believed him, and like I kept doing it for years and years and years. But it stank out the van so much. I think I've sort of like knocked it on the head, and like,
oh yeah, for sure.
The soft drinks market has progressed. Like you can buy these like bottles of like ginger shots now. So like you can get like this week's worth of like ginger shots in a bottle. So I'll probably neck that in a day and a half, and that'll set you up nicely. But I think it's like that sort of like juxtaposition of like being ready to perform, but then also like being ready to have a couple of Guinness on stage, and then just wreck yourself a bit at the end of it. I mean, it is a party, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. What's the proper length of time to have a bag of tea in your teacup?
It depends what tea it is, isn't it? Like if I'm having like a lemon and ginger tea, the bag stays in.
The bag stays in. Okay.
You leave the bag in. Yeah. That's it. If it's a herbal tea or it says yogi in it or anything, keep the bag in. If it's an Earl Grey, maybe keep the bag in. Otherwise, keep it in for about 10, 15 seconds. Swirl it around. Take the bag out. Then put the
that milk. Quick.
Nah, man, I wouldn't be taking out any bag of tea before like 3 minutes.
Yeah, I would say 3.
Oh, okay. We've all got different tea.
This is what ends the band right here.
No, this is the sort of conversation like I wish we weren't having this conversation, because this is like a good hour's worth of van chat we could be having in a month's time.
Yeah.
We'll save the full length version of this one for then. Because sometimes, you know what I mean, at 1 a.m, like you do run out of things to talk about occasionally.
How do you guys spend time in the van?
We used to have a load of religious books. So we used to read the Bhagavad Gita, or like read the Quran, or like just make up games, or classic games. Like you start in a van. There's a bit of sellotape. There's a cup. There's like throw the sellotape on the cup, or then it's like throw the cup around the table, blue tack it, and then throw the sellotape. Lot of bottle flipping goes on. A lot of chatting shit, a lot of like slam poetry,
a lot of shit chat.
I mean, a lot of just like a lot of sort of political debate, a lot of absolute bollocks, really. Just chatting absolute breeze.
Yeah, breeze is the word. For the use.
There's good London words for chatting nonsense, chatting fraff, chatting breeze. Yeah, exactly. I don't know, really. It's sort of like.
What about freestyling?
Freestyling? Well, I know. Yeah, we do. So like we had. I'm always trying to push the agenda for new tunes. So like if every sort of third jam trip, I'll have the guitar out, and I'll be like, I know we just released a new album, like the 4th album.
Sure.
But like we got the 5th album, like that's kind of ready to go. So let's like. I'm always trying to like push the envelope, like either in the van for that, or like when we get on stage, if we've got like a spare 2 minutes and the sound guy's busy, I'll just start singing a new song. So like, just so these guys can hear, oh look, we're on a stage, we're playing that song. So when it actually comes to like actually putting it in the jam room or like trying to record it and then actually playing it live, it's like all these little steps to like realizing,
little bits of content.
The more people hear it, and also for me, just like practice it in a new space. But yeah, so freestyling, like Trosser, you had the ukulele out recently. That was banging. The ukulele, I was playing the guitar.
I bring the ukulele quite regularly as well. As many instruments that we can have around to just create some stuff. That's always good.
Yeah.
So ukulele in the van. There's a good piece of advice for touring bands.
Yeah, it doesn't take up too much space either, so you can do that.
Yeah.
Well, Matt's got a little. You got like a version of Logic or something on your phone as well, which as we record stuff.
Yeah, so sometimes I piss about with that as well. Yeah, got like GarageBand on the phone, so that's a good way to do things. Just like remix stuff, and I've actually got to do like a bit on that after this. Actually, like there's some dude who's also from America. Actually, he wants us to do some sort of ska cover of Robbie Williams' Angels. Chaucer, you did a sax part for that, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Who's this person?
What's his name?
Nob Ross.
Yeah, Nob Ross. The band is what his Instagram is, but I think his name's Rob, right?
Yeah, he introduced himself as Nob actually. I think when he was here. So yeah.
Okay. Anyways, so yeah, we're gonna like do a little track with him anyway. So yeah, like you can just do that on the GarageBand. It's just like a bit of fun, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a good way to spend your time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, always be writing. Like we say, we learn a lot from from each other and from like our own experiences, bands we listened to growing up, and other bands on the scene. But definitely learn a lot from each other. And like Chaucer, you teach songwriting, innit? At university.
Yeah, I've been teaching in the university for about 2 years.
So like you taught me so much, man.
Thank you. You too. It's mutual.
Yeah. So like one of the things like you were saying to me like about a year ago was just about the importance of the first line. So like a lot of the tracks been writing recently are just trying to get that first line right. And so I won't give away any of the first lines from the tracks on the 5th album, which ain't to be released yet.
What's a good rule for coming up with a good first line?
Well, I think like what Trosso said earlier, like linking it to like to move from the specific to the general, or from the general to the specific. You have to do either one of those things. Like you think of a band, like The Cure or something like that. Like they're quite vague and mysterious with their lyrics, or like you think about like an old troubadour like Jake Thackeray, and it's ridiculously specific, talking about some old scabby cat. I think that you have to have that sort of like ethereal abstractness to a lyric where you can engage the most amount of people as possible within that first line. So I think like take a picture, it will last longer. I don't need that part of my soul anymore. Like everyone's had a photo taken of them, so like everyone can relate to that immediately if they want to. But I think it has to be catchy, but it has to also be like something you haven't heard before. Like some people like fall into the trap of like writing a chorus which is like, oh, I can't do this anymore, or oh, this just feels the same, or oh, like, I mean, I'm just thinking about like things like right now, oh, these, this, I don't know. I'm just thinking nonsense here. I'm trying to think. These shoes are the best shoes I've ever worn. I don't know what that means at all.
That's actually kind of a cool chorus. Yeah, you should flesh that out a little bit.
Yeah, maybe.
Oh, the song's about shoes. There's definitely songs about shoes.
Hey guys, this song's about the ones and twos. It's about the socks and the shoes, the rhythm and the blues. It's about me and you. I don't know what makes a good song. It's wherever catches your ear, really, isn't it? And just like Damage off the new album. It's like talk to someone, talk to anyone. That's like, it just seems like it's like a cry for help, but it's also a helpful comment at the same time. It's like self-reflective. It's yourself speaking to yourself. I don't know, really.
I don't think there's any rules, but it's definitely a way to keep the listener engaged. When you're like on your first line, you're already speaking about something that people can relate to, or that people can see themselves in that same situation. It just brings the attention to the song, and it's like, okay, tell me more about that. Like, instead of like if you come up with a first line that is like too generic or it's not meaningful, it's like, okay, I've heard that before, so probably you don't have anything like too deep or too relatable to tell me after that. But if you start with that punchline, it's like, okay, you got my attention. Now tell me more about what this song is about and about what you want to say and about your experiences. That's how I see it.
Yeah, I think Sound of Silence is a great one. Like Hello Darkness, My Old Friend. That's a banger.
Yeah.
So as a person with a history and an experience being a newspaper magazine writer, yes, the opening line is very important.
Exactly.
You want to hook people immediately. Otherwise, yeah, they may just say like, there's nothing here for me. But if you get them in that first line, that first paragraph, then they'll continue to read. So applying that same logic to songwriting.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's easier to keep people's attention until the end, which is what you want. You don't want people to listen to half of your song and then just press skip. And especially nowadays, in which the button is just there in your hand. So if you're getting bored or if you lose interest in the song, you just press that button and listen to the next one.
Yeah, you ain't even got to find the button. You just like swipe it. Do you know what I mean? Like, and that's you've got even less time to grab someone's attention.
Yeah, or double tap your Bluetooth headphones, whatever that does now. It's like, it's crazy how quick you can lose the listener's attention. And so I guess the lyric game has to be really strong nowadays.
Yeah. So back to your second album, To the Moon. I think it was like 2016 or so.
Mm-hmm.
You have a song called Wisdom Teeth, which I see, it's a great song, by the way. I see has the most streams. Is this on Spotify? Is this like your most well-known song?
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any reason why? Is it just sort of like caught on online, just popular favorite live?
I think one, when it started off, it was very energetic live. I think it was took a lot of sort of dance ethos, along with very sort of catchy lines and flowy lyrics. And I guess where it differs to sort of other tunes is sort of very cyclical in its sort of approach and instrumentally. I don't know. It's a good little balance between some of the more kind of progressive stuff that we do and sort of minimalism. And people do say, there's something about that track. Definitely at that time, I think that there was a big sort of fuse of different ideas. That era, like when we were doing that, it was so with Popes, we had with the first album that had sort of different lineup where some of the sort of old Pope members moved on and left, and it was just stripped down to Jack, Matt, and myself. And we basically, it was an era where we were rebuilding the band, and I think in that period there was most of the To the Moon came together and Wisdom Teeth. In terms of why it's a popular one, it's the lyrics and the people love it. I do see a lot of people sort of singing along to the lyrics.
Yeah, Matt, can you talk on the lyrics, because it sounds like you're definitely expressing some anger in that song.
I'm going to talk about a few things about that. I think think about the lyrical content of that. I guess in that song you got the juxtaposition of the very specific in the verses versus the very general in the chords, and then the sort of like the semi-specific in sort of like the middle eight towards the end of the song. So like the chorus is very readily identifiable. I do as I say, not as I do. Everyone's heard that expression before, so you can sort of like draw your own inferences from that. Whereas like the verses, like they're much more specific to people observing sort of lad culture down Wetherspoons, which is like a chain pub that every town in the UK will have Wetherspoons, and it's like the cheapest place you can go to. But they're always called like the Moon Underwater or the Wibbersdown Inn or the Funnel or something ridiculously British like that.
The Lion and Pineapple.
The Lion and Pineapple. fucking tasty pint down here, and the pints taste like fucking piss. So you like it's cheap and cheerful, but everyone knows what Spoons is like. Everyone knows that there are these guys who will hold court in front of anyone who'll bloody listen, which are probably only the bar staff, because they're still within earshot, and they'll tell them exactly what they think about the world. So it's about somebody. It's written in the first person, but it's really me like projecting the ideas of of an older gentleman, an older generation who, perhaps think they've got more to say about the world than they really do. And then, like, towards the end of the song, it's sort of like you sort of switch persons to then observe that character from the mother's side of things, and, like, saying, wait till your father gets home. So the father who's been down the Wetherspoons the whole night will then come and, like, take out his anger on you because no one's actually been listening to him down the pub. So I think, that's what the lyrics are all about anyway. But I think that musically why it makes a lot of sense, that song, is because, it does sort of mesh together those different elements that we talked about. I mean, it's a ska punk song, but it starts in like 6/8 time signature, which is a bit different. And then, it's got a very, very simple riff, really, which was just written really simply on the guitar. But then, once we'd written the guitar riff, then Arvin came in with the bass line, and then that led to the verses being written. And then I think the middle eight was kind of written first. So it's kind of like, and then after all of that was in place, then we get the brass intro, and I think that's what people readily identify with, like the dun 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 dun. So it's like, it just kind of makes sense. Like, it wasn't written in a linear fashion. It's just like one of those things that just made sense.
There's different ways that happen with Pope stuff. So I've got this sort of memory with a Wisdom Teeth. There was a fusion of ideas. I had a couple of hooks lying about, and kind of brought that in. And I remember Matt sort of being like, yeah, let's try these chords. And then I literally remember, like, because it was quite repetitive and cyclical, and we're like, okay, where should we go from here? And Jack was like, I know, why don't we try dun 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 dun. And then I remember Matt going back home and coming in and sort of having this breakdown section and stuff for the middle eight, and we sort of fused it all together, and that was that.
Well, I wasn't a part of the writing of the song, but I can tell about the live experience for me joining the band later. It was, I think we were actually having that chat before our last gig when we were kind of introducing the new album to people, and there was talks about doing like a medley with this song in the middle of, putting a song after that straight away. And I was against it because it's got like, it just creates its own universe, and live is like, it's this transcendental like experience of listening to that 5 minutes, which Matt said it's not like linear, but it does have a linearity to it. And I think that there's so many points in which like the song changes and it keeps it really interesting. And you never know, you can never guess where the end is. And when the end actually comes, it's like this mixture of like euphoria with like, oh my God, I'm glad this is done, because it's like, it's a lot of energy. And when you concentrate all of the energy in the song, it's like, fuck, like it just makes you feel all of that is in the lyrics as well. So I guess it's a very powerful song with the combination of all the elements.
Yeah. So I was reading a blog, a UK blog, and it was in 2018, and the writer he's reviewing a show. You were on the show, and there was some other bands, and he said that he felt like that was a year, 2018, where he really saw like a revival or a kind of a rising up of sort of a new UK ska punk scene, or maybe the audiences were growing, some of the old bands were coming back. What's your guys' take on that?
It's funny because I've definitely, from my point of view, throughout the years, I've kind of, that's a story that kind of cycles over many times. I mean, even with us, it's like, how many times are we like the new band on the scene, but we're not.
Yeah.
We've kind of been around a long time, and but we, I guess we've kind of reinvented ourselves, but we've sort of come up with different stuff over the time, and therefore hitting new people that have probably just heard us. But I've definitely seen that. I think that sort of quote or that idea that this is it. It's coming back. I think I remember hearing that back in 2010. I remember hearing that in 2014, 2015. I remember hearing it now. So I think it's always just been simmering, and there's been some good, a lot of good stuff that's come out over the years. But in terms of, it's very hard to see if over that timeline if there was a specific moment where, I guess where it really peaked. yeah, I don't know if that makes any sense.
How connected do you guys feel to sort of what's happening in the U.S. with like obviously Trosso, you're in a band that's on Bad Time Records, but I'm curious if in general if you guys feel connected to sort of these new bands in the U.S. and Bad Time Records and what's kind of happening here.
Well, I definitely feel a big connection because I've been there a couple of times and with Abracadabra, and they came over here as well. And there is a big sense of like a family, a community inside Bad Time Records, and I'm in touch with them all the time. But we definitely talk about these bands all the time, and like
I don't know. Like I was saying earlier, like I when I was in early, before I met Popes, back in the day, I was playing in a band, completely different genre, but I guess the maybe the style of bass playing I did sort of lended itself quite well to the sort of ska reggae stuff. But in that, personally, there was a lot of my homework that hadn't been done. So it's Matt that introduced me to Captain and King Prawn. And there's even till today, I think you guys mentioned a band that everyone knows the tune, and I'm sort of a little bit in the dark about it. I mean, obviously, over the years of being in Popes, I've loved all the scene stuff and the stuff that gets introduced and the stuff that I've heard. So it's something I definitely want to go out of my way to go and listen to and sort of see what's out there. I do feel a little bit disconnected. I don't know with Matt. If you I know Matt's way more in tune with what happens with Ska World than I am.
I mean, I think that I'm in tune with what's happening in this country, and I think I've always had eyes on this country, really, and eyes and ears, on this country. I listened to like a fair bit of skate punk and that came out in the 90s, but more like I guess I like sort of bands more like Lagwagon and Pennywise and Bad Religion and The Offspring and things like that. I think like Bouncing Souls or Mad Caddies or Less Than Jake, the standard staples of the ska and punk world that anybody would reference, really. But I wouldn't really keep up with things that were coming out now. I think we would more if we went out there and did tours out there, which we haven't done yet, just because we haven't sorted it out, really. But I know Trosso, you've been out there with Abracadabra, so like maybe like some of the bands are out there making waves right now. But yeah, I guess like it's like there's more of a sort of like there's more of a sort of like a major tonality to the overarching musical themes to the music that they produce, and some of the darker elements of the ska punk musical sort of landscape that's what I identify with more readily, and I think we find that darkness over here a bit more.
I think you'd like some of the new bands. I don't think they're not really similar too much to what the popular 90s bands in the US. I think there's a new thing that is more serious lyrically and stuff and more interesting musically that I think you would appreciate.
Who would you recommend then?
Well, you got to start with Catbite, of course, Bad Operation, Kill Lincoln.
Oh no, we know Catbite. Yeah.
Oh, I caught them the other day. Saw them the other day. Yeah, they were great. Yeah, at New Cross Inn actually. It was their little tour that happened recently. It was Catbite, Kill Lincoln. Yeah. And Malcolm opened up and Big D as well. Yeah, it's cool. And we get to like I don't know about obviously with newer bands. What I saw there was amazing, especially live. As it always is with ska bands. But in terms of bands we knew from the US and once we played with sort of that go back a bit further into history, stuff like Voodoo Glow Skulls. So I think that's always something that kind of resonates quite strongly with us.
Who's the bands in the UK that you feel like right now that you feel like a kinship to, like kind of in the similar level as you?
I think we've probably mentioned all of them.
Yeah, there's not too many.
Random Hands, Risking the Ridicule, Counting Coins,
Call Me Malcolm. They're always playing with us. Oh.
Call Me Malcolm, yeah. Just I guess like the guys who do the heavier side of things as well. Who else? Who else do we play with? Faintest Idea, of course. Yeah. Imperial Leisure, I guess, like, you know, like we had a good time with them, like over the years as well.
They're back now, right? They broke up for a while.
They're always breaking up and get back together. Oh, Barstool Preachers, obviously. You know, they're a banging band.
Yeah, Pook from Pook Out Records, he always has some interesting projects as well. He's always playing with us.
Oh yeah, he's an amazing musician. Yeah, he's absolute vocals. Always gets around doing stuff.
Yeah, so Redeemon is his band at the moment, and you got to find love for JB Conspiracy as well. You know, they got some banging tunes. They don't gig as much as they used to.
I tell you what, it's funny that there are people that come up at shows and they you know, I think similar to what you're saying about Sonic Boom 6 earlier. They sort of have a comment saying, sort of we carry a lot of the echoes of the sound from that era. So from that sort of Cap Down, King Prawn, sort of earlier. Do you know a band? You heard of a band called Clay Pigeon?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes. So they, you know, I've heard a lot of, like, you know, if that side of the scene was still going, like they sort of see that in us.
Yeah, I guess a band that we didn't talk about that for me is a big influence, and they were a big part of the scene for a long time, and now they're a bit different, but still in. It's the Skins.
Oh yeah, the Skins, obviously.
Yeah, they're more to the like reggae side of things now, but they still play a lot of ska punk shows in here.
Yeah, but they definitely have the harder side of things, especially in, like, I guess they've been on almost like a not reverse journey to us, but I think they started out a lot heavier, and now they're much more consistently sort of like reggae, dub reggae. They've lost, you know, perhaps the regularity of those punk and metal elements.
Yeah, but they still, like, I've seen them like probably like 4 or 5 times this year, and they play Kept Down. They play a Kept Down cover on their set, for example, which
one
brings in the, you know, that I don't remember the name of the song.
Cousin Cletus, I think that's called.
Cousin Cletus, yeah.
Could be that. Yeah, that shows that, you know, they know where they came from, and they still do some stuff to support it as well.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been playing with a lot of ska punk bands around the world. Like, they've been opening for the Interrupters a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So never played the US?
Nah, not yet. No,
we haven't.
Okay. Let's get it on the agenda. Let's get you guys to the US.
Yeah, I met the people from Folly last year when I was touring with Abracadabra, and I was just wearing a Popes hoodie. They're like, "Oh, we fucking love that band." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I play in the band." And they're like, "Oh, let's make it work." And it's been talks around here.
All right, so Trasso, I'm putting this on you. This is your assignment.
Yes,
since
I'm doing it.
You've toured the US. You got connections.
No, we can totally make it happen. Yeah, if I'm sure they'll let us in the country. It'll be fine. Yeah.
Don't go anywhere. If you want to hear the rest of this conversation, head over to our Patreon. Thank you for listening to In Defense of Ska. Please rate and review this podcast and tell a friend. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at In Defense of Ska. Pick up Aaron's book, In Defense of Ska, at your local bookstore or online. This podcast is edited by Chris Reeves of Ska Punk International. This is your co-host, Adam Davis of Omnigon, leaving you by saying ska now more than ever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Done. But are we all done? No, because we have a thing called the Patreon. And over on the Patreon, pull back this curtain, and behind the curtain, more episode. So if you didn't get
the good stuff too, yeah.
It's the good stuff. It's the stuff that, look, once we get back there, that's where it gets loose. We know that it's not for everybody. So if you want to find out the real skinny on what's going on, head over there.
Scott, he goes off a little bit on the Limp Bizkit and people's interest in Limp Bizkit coming back.
Yeah.
It's very passionate rant he goes on that you can hear if you go behind the curtain, but not if you stay in front of the curtain, you cannot hear it.
in front of the curtain, you still believe that your nostalgia for Limp Bizkit is justified. Behind the curtain, you might find out something different.
Yes. So,
Aaron,
go ahead.
who do we have next week on this show?
Next week, we have the Popes of Chillitown from the UK.
UK. And also, we've mentioned it before, but Scott has a GoFundMe going. If you can go over and donate, if you have not already, he would appreciate it. And if you've already done it, thank you.